Hello, Tim from Fairplay now on the 16th of December 2023. So there's probably not going to be a video from me tomorrow because I've got to go off and film an event with one or two people there who I think you're going to find very interesting, but I'll just going to tease you for now and not really divulge too much more, but watch this space in the next few days. So I watched an interview between, well, it wasn't really an interview, it's a discussion with Mark Devlin and the lads on the Sheep Farm podcast. I haven't talked about Sheep Farm in, well, a long time, too long. I haven't really watched any of their stuff in a very long time. Don't know why, because their content is absolutely fantastic. So I'm going to give them a shout out, and especially this episode with Mark Devlin, and I'll leave a link to it where you can find it easily in the description box below. But checking out their other content is very worthwhile as well. So one thing that they said on this particular episode with Mark Devlin, it was Mark Devlin who was saying it, and I've heard him say this sort of thing before. He's been travelling quite a lot. He's been to America and Australia, both in the last month, so that must have been a grueling old schedule. But he was saying that he really wants to make the most of it because, of course, there was a point that many of us faced where he thought he'd never be able to leave these shores again. He never thought he'd be able to go to America or Australia or even Europe, any European destination. And that is how I felt. Now, it wasn't just travelling either. He mentions travelling, but there were so many other things I was fearing I wasn't going to be able to do. And I want to take you back almost 3 years in time to December the 24th, 2020. Very dark days indeed. If you cast your mind back, in this country at least, we were staring the third lockdown right in the face. That was brought in shortly into the new year, but they were doing these stupid halfway things, the tier system. Do you remember that? Tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, all of that kind of thing. And some parts of the country by Christmas Eve of 2020 were already in sort of tier 4, which was essentially lockdown, nothing was open or anything. Some parts, like here around my locality, were in tier 2, which things were still open. You could still go to restaurants, but I think it was going to be literally the very next day or Boxing Day, very shortly after Christmas, or even on Christmas Day, that our area was going to be going into a higher tier and essentially lockdown. So it was the last night that you could go out really and have a meal for quite a few months, because first of all we went into this tier 4, as did most of the rest of the country, and then shortly into the new year of 2021 they announced full lockdown. I think that was about the 4th or 5th of January. And I remember going up to the Indian restaurants. We sat down, we had our pompadons and those nice little chutney things they give you with them. And I remember saying to Lorraine, you know what, this could literally be the last time we ever go to a restaurant. Because even back then, well, first of all, we didn't know how long the lockdowns were going to last. They did last a good few months. Although I think by about April time, maybe May, you could start going back to eating in restaurants. And I think we went back to that same place in about May. But at the time, December 2020. We didn't know if we're going to, because even then they said when the lockdowns were lifted, it was only going to be the VEED who were probably going to be allowed into restaurants and shops, big shops and that sort of thing, and back into society. And if you weren't willing to take the thing, you were going to have to stay essentially in lockdown forever, or certainly you weren't going to be allowed into restaurants. And they were saying that kind of thing even back in late 2020, and this was just when the rollout of the things were only starting. So that kind of says to me that there was definitely an agenda going on there. They were absolutely determined to get it into everybody, and if you dissented, there was no way they were willing to, well, basically they were willing to hound you and make your life an absolute misery. And even at that stage, I was absolutely determined not to take the thing. In fact, there wasn't really ever a period, I don't know about you, but there was never a period as far as I'm concerned that I was even considering sort of having the thing. I was sort of, from day one that they announced the thing, I was like, no way am I having it. And I never changed on that stance. I felt that way from day one, and I was determined to resist it. So that was why, as I sat down at this Indian meal, December the 24th, 2020, I literally thought, you know what, this could be my last restaurant meal. It really could, because I'm not having the thing, and if they make it the case that you can only participate in society if you do have the thing, well, that would have been me out of it, wouldn't it? So I just thought I'd reflect on this kind of little incident, you know, the way I was feeling in this restaurant. We went up there, and although it was a pleasant evening and we had a nice meal, obviously it was tinged with sadness, it was tinged with worry, it was tinged with I don't know what other emotions. A fair bit of anger, I should think, was going on in my deep in my sort of being as well. I've got to admit to that. And as I look back on this, I just think never again should anyone be put into that position where you're being told that unless you do something, or unless you don't do something, whatever way around it might be, you will become a second-class citizen and not allowed to do this, not allowed to do that, not allowed to do whatever. It's an absolute disgrace, wasn't it? An absolute disgrace that we ever got to that point. We ever got to the point where people like me were sort of worried about being excluded from society, and it must never, ever happen again. I just think it's despicable. And anyone who propagated that, the powers that shouldn't be, the government, MPs who supported this kind of nonsense, and ordinary people who supported that kind of nonsense, well, they need to be thoroughly ashamed of themselves. You guys, boy oh boy, were you ever on the wrong side of history. You really were totally and utterly on the wrong side of history. And who do you think you are, or who do you think you were, sort of telling people that their freedoms were going to be removed unless they did what you wanted them to do? Yeah, that really brought out the little fascist in you, didn't it? Really brought out the little fascist in everybody really who supported that kind of thing. So yeah, as we approach, I didn't really want to make this video actually on the 24th because it's a bit of a heavy one, isn't it? And when it gets to the Christmas Eve, I don't really want to be in this kind of mood. I want to be in a bit more of an uplifted mood. But as I have got these thoughts in my head right now, I thought I'd make this video on almost the 3rd anniversary of what may have been, and frankly what could so easily have been, my last ever restaurant meal out. So gonna leave it there, and like I say, most likely won't be a video tomorrow. There might be, if I get a bit of time, I might have a bit of time, but in all probability I won't be back until Monday, but I will be busy doing some filming of some interesting speakers, and they will be with you soon. Tim from Fair Play Now, thanks for watching.